There are two types of people in this world. Those who think Family Guy is better, and those who are wrong. Well, maybe not exactly, but that's how I used to think. Family Guy has always been superior to me. You'll struggle to find an episode that I haven't seen at least twice. Yeah, I might have a problem. But after my Family Guy addiction got so bad that the episodes became boring to me, I decided to give American Dad a chance. And I gotta say, I was definitely sleeping on it. I always viewed it as a slightly worse version of Family Guy, but that couldn't be any further from the truth. The shows are nothing alike. Now, just in case you weren't aware, both cartoons were created by the same guy, so that's why I always assumed they would be similar. I mean, both do delve into darker comedy, both aren't afraid to break logic to make the joke funnier, and they've both got that same Seth MacFarlane DNA. But here's the thing, once you actually sit down and watch them properly, you start to realize they're trying to do completely different things. So instead of arguing about which is better, I'm going to break this down into 5 key categories. And to keep things fair, I'm going to give each show a point in every category. Whoever does it better gets a score on the board. Then by the end, we'll have an actual answer of which is better instead of just opinions. Let's start off with the most important one, because at the end of the day, if a comedy show isn't funny, then nothing else really matters. Now, I do think both Family Guy and American Dad are funny, but the styles of humour is really where these shows separate themselves. Family Guy is fast, chaotic, and completely random. It'll jump from one joke to another in seconds, and half the time, it doesn't matter if it makes sense. Like the episode could be going perfectly normal, and then suddenly we're watching a random cutaway about something that has absolutely nothing to do with the plot. And sometimes it can be a bit silly and make me laugh.
No, Diabito. Roll back to kitchen.
Oh.
But other times, it can make you think, what the heck am I watching? American Dad, on the other hand, takes a different approach. Instead of throwing as many gags at you as possible, it builds them into the story. The humour comes more from the characters and the situations they're in, rather than just randomness. It has cleverer jokes. Wait, cleverer? Is that even a word? Anyway, my point is, you can tell the writers clearly spend longer on American Dad jokes, making them fit the scenario in which the characters are in. So while it might not hit you with as many jokes, they definitely feel more intentional. You see, the thing is with Family Guy, they try to stuff as many jokes as possible into one episode, that it's bound to have a few misses, and that's the biggest difference between the shows. Family Guy focuses on quantity, and American Dad focuses on quality. Don't get me wrong, if the jokes land, then Family Guy is arguably funnier than anything American Dad can do. But that's the problem, it doesn't always land. So if you're looking for constant rapid-fire jokes, then Family Guy probably has the edge. But if you want something more well-written and consistent, then I've got to give American Dad the point on this one. Now this is where it kinda gets interesting, because on the surface, both sets of characters share some similarities. Both have dysfunctional dads who seem to be the main problem, both are chaotic suburban families, and both have the same amount of family members. So instead of talking about the characters as a whole, I thought we could make it a bit more interesting and do a head-to-head instead. Peter versus Stan, Lois versus Francine, Chris versus Steve, Meg versus Haley, Brian versus Klaus, and Stewie versus Roger. All these characters serve a similar role, but that doesn't mean they're equally as good. Whichever character takes the edge earns a point for their show. Starting off with the most important one, Peter versus Stan. This matchup is really important because the dad basically defines the whole show. They both drive most of the stories, and their personalities set a tone for everything else. Both idiots in their own ways, but they're very different characters. Peter is pure chaos. He's unpredictable, impulsive, and will do literally anything if it leads to a joke. Most of the time, he's the one controlling the story. He's arguably the funniest character on the show too. He will make something stupid or random happen nearly every episode. Stan, on the other hand, is a lot more structured. He can still be ridiculous, but his actions usually come from something. His job, his beliefs, or his ego. There's normally a reason behind what he's doing, even if it is completely over the top, and that makes him feel a bit more grounded as a character. So when it comes to who's more entertaining to actually watch, I think Peter just has the edge. He's more erratic, he creates funnier moments, and honestly, he can carry an episode just by being on screen. I still think Stan is a great character, but for this matchup, Family Guy takes the point. Next up is Lois versus Francine. Now, on paper, these two should be really similar. They're both the wives, both meant to be the more grounded presence in the family, and usually the one reacting to whatever insane thing the dad is doing. But the way each show uses them is completely different. Lois, for the most part, plays that voice of reason role. She's there to keep things somewhat normal, calling out Peter when he's being stupid.
Why do you always do these stupid things? And why do you always announce them to me before you do them?
And overall, just holding the family together. And she does it well. But the problem is, it can be very limiting. Francine, on the other hand, starts in that same role, but she doesn't stay there. She's just as capable as being unhinged as the rest of the family. Sometimes she can even be the craziest. Instead of reacting to the chaos, she's actively contributing to it. And because of that, her character ends up feeling more dynamic. Now, Lois does have her moments when the show lets her, but it doesn't happen nearly as often. And for that reason, I've got to give this one to American Dad. Now, Chris versus Steve. This is another matchup where they're meant to fill the same role. Awkward teenage son, not the most popular, usually caught up in whatever's going on around them. But the difference in the way they're written is pretty noticeable. Chris, for the most part, is kinda just dumb.
La 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 la. Off I go on my merry way. Life is great and I'm happy with my dad.
That's basically his whole character, if we're being honest. A lot of his jokes come from him being slow, confused, or saying something completely out of pocket.
Some animals give me boners.
And sometimes it can work, but a lot of the time, that's kinda all there is to him. It makes him a very one-dimensional character. Steve, on the other hand, is way more defined as a character. He's still awkward and unpopular, but the show builds on that. His obsession with trying to fit in, his overconfidence in situations where he really shouldn't be confident. There's just a lot more to work with when it comes to Steve. Chris can have his funny moments, but Steve consistently brings more to the table. And he also has a great singing voice. I mean, seriously, I would buy his album if he dropped one. American Dad takes the point. Next up is Meg versus Haley. Now, this one might be the most unfair matchup out of all of them. While they both serve the same role as teenage daughter, the way they're treated in each show is completely different. Meg, for the most part, is a punching bag. That's her entire character. The joke is that everyone hates her. Everyone completely ignores and dismisses her.
Shut up, Meg.
And I'd be lying if I said I didn't find it funny sometimes, but the problem is that's all there is to her. There are a few episodes where they try to give her more depth, but most of the time it resets back to the same joke. She's more of a running gag than an actual character. Haley, on the other hand, is treated like a real person. She has her own personality, beliefs, and even her own storylines more often than not. She contributes to the plot, bounces off other characters, and feels like she's part of the family. And because of that, it's way more engaging to watch. Meg can be funny in small doses, but Haley just works better as a character. So this one is not even close. Another point to American Dad. Next, we have Brian and Klaus. This one is very interesting because these two are probably the most similar matchup so far. They're both the talking pets of the family, both a bit more self-aware, and let's be honest, they're both kind of dicks. But again, the way each show uses them is very different. Brian is more of a central character, he's used in full storylines, gets real development, and is often used as a way to explore more serious topics. He can be the voice of reason for 1 minute, then completely hypocritical the next, which makes him a lot more interesting. Most of his humor comes from being so pretentious that he's hard to take serious sometimes. There's just a lot more depth to him. Klaus, however, is more of a side character. Most of his humor comes from him being ignored, insulted, or kinda just creepy.
Will you go there?
Go where? What?
Do you eat?
What the hell is this?
I've got the money. Danuta.
Klaus, that was chilling.
I blacked out!
And to be fair, his dynamic can be funny sometimes, but he doesn't have a lot to do. He rarely carries the episode. Brian just feels way more important to his own show. He's more versatile and overall brings more to the table. So for this one, Family Guy takes the point. And finally, we have Stewie versus Roger. Now, this one might not seem like a fair matchup at first, since Roger can obviously communicate with more characters, making him more dynamic. But hear me out, both lean on the homosexual side and, both have weird shaped heads? Okay, they may not play the exact same role in their families, but I'm gonna try to keep this as fair as possible. They're both completely chaotic, both steal the scenes, and you can make the argument for them being the best characters across both shows. Stewie has that mix of intelligence, arrogance, and complete randomness. One minute he can be plotting world domination, and the next he's just a normal kid. He's unpredictable, which is what makes him so entertaining. And when you pair him up with Brian, that dynamic really adds more to his character. But Roger is just on another level. He can be literally anyone. Different personalities, identities, a complete different role in every episode. And because of that, the show can do so much more with him. You never really know what he's gonna do. Half of the time, he's the only reason the show goes off the rails. And in my opinion, he's the best character on American Dad. Don't get me wrong, Stewie is an amazing character too, and it is a lot closer than you'd think, but Roger just gives his show more to work with, and for that reason, he just edges it, meaning American Dad takes the final point in the characters category. This is a really important factor, especially for shows that have been running as long as these two. Because it's one thing to have a couple funny seasons, but staying good over time is a complete different challenge. Family Guy has been running since the late 90s, and it has 24 seasons at this point, which is pretty insane when you think about it. American Dad started a bit later in the mid-2000s, but it's caught up quick, with it currently airing its 22nd season at the time of making this. So these are both long-running series, with a lot of time to change, evolve, or fall off. And this is where it gets interesting because in my opinion, they've kind of gone in opposite directions. Family Guy was subjectively better in its earlier seasons. That's where the most iconic episodes come from. The jokes felt fresher, everything just hit a bit harder. But as the show went on, it started to feel a bit more hit or miss. After around the season 14 mark, the seasons seemed to get gradually worse and worse, ever so slightly. It became more inconsistent, some episodes were forgettable, and it just doesn't have the same energy that it used to. Now don't get me wrong, it can still be funny now, but you can definitely feel the drop-off from its peak. Now here's the thing, American Dad did almost the opposite. Those earlier seasons were good, but a bit more standard, almost as if the show was finding its feet. The characters really did take a while to find their identity, but once they do, it just gets better. The writing has definitely improved and feels a lot more confident in what it wants to be. And from there, it stayed pretty consistent. It doesn't have as many huge peaks as Family Guy at its best, but it also doesn't dip as much either. So you've basically got a show that started off strong and is on a slow decline, and another that started off kinda mid, but has improved over time. So it's really hard to call this one, since it kinda balances it out. Can I just give a point to both sides? Of course I can, it's my own video. Family Guy's identity is very clear. Cutaway gags, random humour, and storylines that don't have to make sense as long as they're funny. And while it might not be everyone's cup of tea, you can't deny that Family Guy has a formula and it sticks to it. I made a video on the season 24 premiere because in that episode, they scrapped the cutaways completely, and that's why it felt so different, for better or worse. Family Guy knows what it is, and it doesn't take itself too serious most of the time. American Dad, on the other hand, it's a bit harder to pin down what exactly they're going for most of the time, especially in the earlier seasons. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It definitely experiments more and changes depending on the episode. One episode might be more story-driven or about character development, and the next can be completely absurd, as if they've taken a leaf out of Family Guy's book. And while the variety can be more fun sometimes, you never really know what to expect, making it feel less distinct overall. So whether you like it or not, Family Guy does have a clear style. It's confident in itself. So while American Dad might be more flexible, I have to give the point to Family Guy here. This is probably the most one-sided category out of all of them, because while both shows are popular, only one of them has had a much bigger impact on pop culture. Family Guy is everywhere. I'm sure you could go to a secluded farm in West Germany and ask them who this is, and they'll be able to tell you straight away. And if you did the same for Stan, they'd probably think that Joe grew a pair of working legs. And I think a big reason for that is because of how the humor works. The quick, punchy jokes, it makes it incredibly easy to clip and share on sites like YouTube. You don't really need much context to find it funny. In fact, there's probably 100 out-of-context Family Guy compilations, and some will argue that's the best way to watch the show. It's built for this type of content, and that's why it spreads way easier. American Dad, on the other hand, is a lot more under the radar. It definitely still has a big fan base, and those who watch it know how good it is, but it's not nearly as present online. That's because a lot of its best moments come from build-up, character development, or callbacks to an earlier reference, which means you can't really clip it up and expect it to hit the same way. You kinda just have to watch the episode to fully get it, and I would definitely recommend it to anyone who hasn't seen it before. But at the end of the day, Family Guy is just way more visible. It has more memes and recognizable moments. So when it comes to a cultural impact, Family Guy takes the point pretty easily. So when we look at the scores in the end, it looks like American Dad just takes the win. And I'm not gonna lie, that is not the outcome I expected going into this. I've always preferred Family Guy, so I assumed it would win pretty comfortably. But when you break it down like this and put your bias aside, American Dad just does more things better. Family Guy is louder, faster, and more chaotic. The kind of show that you throw on in the background while doing something else. American Dad is a lot more underrated. It doesn't get talked about as much, but when you watch it properly, it really does deserve more credit than it gets. So to answer the age-old question of which is better, I guess American Dad wins. But nah, I still prefer Family Guy.